Welcome back to CIA Declassified. The humid air of Guatemala City is heavy with the scent of roasted coffee and the electric tension of a changing world. It is 1954, and the Cold War has moved into the backyard of the United States. You are standing in the Central Plaza, watching a young, hopeful democracy led by Jacob Arbenz attempt to reclaim land for the peasantry. But in the boardrooms of Boston and the hallways of Langley, this isn't seen as progress. It's seen as a red infection in the Western Hemisphere. You are witnessing the birth of the corporate coup. Imagine a shell company, a front with no employees, no products, and no physical headquarters, that is currently buying up surplus military hardware and hiring mercenaries. This is SYNCARP. The atmosphere in the Florida staging areas is a mix of high-stakes gambling and amateur theater. They aren't just planning a military strike. They are writing scripts for a radio play that will convince an entire nation that an invincible rebel army is at their doorstep, when in reality it's just a few hundred men and a lot of plywood props. You feel the sweat stinging your eyes as you help create another shipment of agricultural equipment that is actually a stack of M1 rifles. The Florida sun beats down on the corrugated metal roof of the SYNCARP warehouse, creating a stifling metallic heat that smells of cosmoline and cheap cigars. Nearby, a man in a crisp suit, who claims to be a fruit executive but carries himself like a paratrooper, is barking orders into a telephone. You see the stacks of plywood intended to be shaped into tank silhouettes, and for a moment, the absurdity of it hits you. You are building a stage play that will decide the fate of millions. You are the operator now. You are sitting in an unmarked office in Opa-locka, Florida, surrounded by maps of the Guatemalan highlands and crates of deniable rifles. You feel the heat of the vacuum tubes and the radio transmitters that will broadcast the voice of liberation into the homes of unsuspecting citizens. You aren't just a soldier, you are a perception manager. Every crate you manifest through SYNCARP is a brick in a wall of deception designed to make the Arbenz government believe their own military has already defected. As the sun rises over the jungle canopy, you hear the drone of a lone aircraft, purchased through SYNCARP funds, dropping leaflets instead of bombs. You are participating in the invention of platypus warfare, creating a creature that looks like a revolution, swims like a coop, but is actually a creature of the agency. You watch the liberation leader, Castillo Armas, cross the border, knowing his entire movement is a logistical mirage you've helped maintain. You are the architect of a collapse that will be televised, broadcast, and felt for the next 70 years. Why SYNCARP? Within the CIA's cryptonym system, the SY digraph was traditionally assigned to the Directorate of Plans for operations involving political action and paramilitary support in the Western Hemisphere. The suffix "INCARP" was a reference to National Coordinating Committee, a nod to the organization's role as the central hub for the various anti-Arbenz factions. It acted as the legal and financial synapse, sync, that connected American corporate interests with the clandestine needs of Operation PB's success. To understand how the CIA managed to buy a revolution on credit, we have to look at the cold, hard logistics of the SYNCARP front. SYNCARP was the primary financial vehicle for Operation PB's success, which I have another episode on. The organization was used to purchase P-47 Thunderbolt fighter planes from the U.S. government for private use. It funded the Voice of Liberation, a clandestine radio station that broadcasted from a mobile van. SYNCARP utilized the United Fruit Company shipping lines to move weapons. The organization maintained a secret training base in Nicaragua under the protection of Somoza regime. It was used to pay the salaries of a rebel army that never exceeded 480 men. SYNCARP coordinated with the Dulles brothers, John Foster at State and Allen at CIA, both of whom had ties to United Fruit. The program utilized plywood bombs, wooden boxes filled with dynamite, to create a psychological effect of massive aerial bombardment. It produced fake newspaper reports of military defections to demoralize the Guatemalan army. SYNCARP funds were used to bribe high-ranking Guatemalan officials to remain neutral during the invasion. The organization utilized denial and deception, D&D techniques, to inflate the perceived size of the rebel force. It managed the blacklist of Arbenz supporters who were to be arrested after the coup. SYNCARP was the first major CIA paramilitary front in Latin America. The program utilized Operation Sherwood to establish its propaganda headquarters in Florida. It bypassed the Logan Act by acting as a private commercial entity. SYNCARP utilized cargo sling drops to deliver supplies to rebels without landing aircraft. The organization purchased surplus M1 Garand rifles to arm the liberation forces. It utilized psychological warfare, teams to spread rumors of communist atrocities. SYNCARP coordinated the departure of the Arbenz family into exile via a KLM flight. The program's total budget was approximately $4.4 million in 1954 dollars. It utilized nerve centers in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, Tegucigalpa. SYNCARP employed former Office of Strategic Services, OSS, agents as contract advisors. The organization used shell bank accounts in the Bahamas to mask the source of the money. It influenced the Organization of American States, OAS, to condemn the Arbenz government. SYNCARP was officially dissolved shortly after the installation of Castillo Armas as president. The program utilized smokescreens on airfields to hide the limited number of rebel planes. It distributed liberation armbands to civilians before any rebels actually reached the city. SYNCARP-funded pilots flew over the capital, dropping empty soda bottles that whistled like falling bombs. The organization coordinated with Edward Bernays, the father of modern PR, to manipulate U.S. media coverage. It utilized Project Washtub, which I have another episode on, to plant fake Soviet weapons caches in Nicaragua to prove Arbenz was a communist puppet. SYNCARP purchased C-47 transport planes painted with private markings to drop propaganda. The front organization hired pilots who were technically re-signed from the Air Force to maintain deniability. SYNCARP established a fake news agency to wire reports to international papers. It used jungle radios specifically modified to withstand the humidity of the Guatemalan highlands. SYNCARP-funded operatives used invisible ink for correspondence between the Florida warehouse and Central American cells. The organization purchased surplus World War II naval mines to threaten Guatemalan ports. It funded the Anti-Communist University Students Committee to stage protest. SYNCARP utilized dead drops in Guatemala city parks to pass funds to military defectors. The front used luxury travel cover for CIA officers visiting the region as investors. It purchased high-speed patrol boats that were shipped in pieces to Honduras. SYNCARP used cryptographic pads that were disguised as regular business ledgers. The organization funded the printing of over 500,000 liberation pamphlets in multiple dialects. It established a ghost hospital in Honduras to treat rebel wounded. SYNCARP used private security firms as a buffer for hiring mercenaries. The front actually paid for the fuel and maintenance of the entire Liberation Air Force. It used microfilm to smuggle architectural plans of the presidential palace out of the country. SYNCARP-funded agents planted rumors that Arbenz was planning to outlaw religion. The organization specialized in encryption machines for use in their secret mobile radio vans. It manipulated the price of Guatemalan coffee on the market to increase economic pressure. SYNCARP used shortwave frequencies that were preset on radios gifted to Guatemalan military officers. The organization established a relief fund that was just a pipeline for bribe money. It used non-U.S. weaponry like British Sten guns to hide the American origin of the coup. SYNCARP funded a shadow government in exile months before the actual invasion. The organization used acoustic illusions, loudspeakers on planes, to mimic the sound of heavy artillery. It created fake Soviet advisors' sightings to alarm the U.S. State Department. Quote from a declassified internal CIA planning memo for SYNCARP: "We must be prepared to act through a front that the world can accept as a legitimate political movement." A declassified remark from a senior CIA director: "Guatemala is a laboratory where we are testing the ability to topple a government without a single American soldier on the ground." Quote from a declassified intelligence assessment: "The goal of SYNCARP is to make the lie so loud that the truth cannot be heard." Declassified CIA operational directive: "The psychologist impact of a few well-placed aircraft is worth 10 battalions on the ground." Declassified internal memo from the Office of Policy Coordination: "The elimination of ARVENs is a necessary step to secure the investment climate of the Caribbean. Our front must remain commercial." This one is a quote from a declassified financial audit. "Our front must remain commercially viable even as it serves a kinetic purpose." And a quote from a CIA paramilitary chief whose name isn't provided: "The Plywood revolution demonstrates that perception is the only reality in covert action." End quote. Within the after-action report for PB Success, the chapter titled Post-Coup Stabilization and Direct Action is heavily sanitized. Approximately 60 pages are blacked out. These redactions fall under Exemption B1 for national security and Exemption B3 for the protection of intelligence sources. I suspect these pages detail the Special Operations Group, SOG, that remained behind to systematically execute the individuals on the blacklist. Speculation among historians suggests these pages contain the liquidation protocols, the specific instructions given to the new Guatemalan military on how to dispose of political dissidents to ensure Arbenz land reform would never return. The redactions likely cover the direct involvement of U.S. officers in the death squads that began to emerge in the immediate aftermath of the SYNCARP operation. When a corporation and a spy agency share a bed, the rumors grow tall. For instance, there's the Che connection. Some speculate that the CIA's success with SYNCARP in Guatemala directly led to the radicalization of young Ernesto Che, who was in the country at the time. The theory suggests that the CIA purposely let him escape so he would act as a boogeyman to justify future interventions. Then there's the banana gold theft theory. It's a persistent one that claims that SYNCARP was used to loot the Guatemalan National Treasury during the chaos of the coup, moving gold bars onto United Fruit ships to be laundered back to the U.S. Then there's the puppet master theory. This one speculates that the entire SYNCARP operation was actually designed by the United Fruit Company itself, and they simply hired the CIA to execute it, representing the first time a private corporation dictated U.S. foreign policy through a covert front. And then there is the Mayan artifact smuggling theory. This one's popular among conspiracy enthusiasts. It suggests the operation was used as a cover to smuggle priceless Mayan artifacts out of the country. Was SYNCARP a success? Tactically, it was a flawless execution of perception warfare. The CIA managed to overthrow a government with virtually no casualties on their side by winning the war of nerves. The tactical success lay in the radio mirror, using broadcasts to make the government believe it was surrounded by a ghost army. It proved that in the age of mass media, you don't need to defeat an army if you can defeat its morale. By controlling the information flow and utilizing plywood deceptions, SYNCARP created a tactical reality that simply didn't exist on the ground, yet it forced a real surrender. This mastery of non-kinetic force meant the agency achieved a total regime change with a fraction of the cost and risk of a conventional invasion. Furthermore, the tactical integration of corporate logistics, United Fruit ships, radio towers, and ports into a military operation was unprecedented. It created a seamless battle space where commercial activity provided the perfect camouflage for paramilitary strikes. This fusion allowed the agency to bypass congressional oversight and military bureaucracy, creating a lean, agile force that could react to changing conditions in real time. SYNCARP's ability to weaponize the mundane infrastructure of international trade remains a masterclass in covert tactical planning. Strategically, It was a generational catastrophe. While the CIA got the result they wanted in 1954, they sparked a 40-year civil war in Guatemala that killed over 200,000 people. It radicalized the entire Latin American left and taught the world that the U.S. would prioritize fruit company profits over democratic ideals. It was the strategic original sin that would haunt American foreign policy for the rest of the 20th century. By prioritizing the short-term stability of corporate interests over the long-term stability of a democratic neighbor, the U.S. created a blueprint for instability that would be replaced in Iran, Chile, and beyond. The strategic fallout also destroyed the moral standing of the U.S. in the region for decades. It proved that self-determination was a hollow promise if it interfered with American capital. The strategic blunder forced the U.S. into a cycle of supporting brutal dictatorships to prevent the communist movements that their own interventions had helped create. In the end, SYNCARP didn't protect the Western Hemisphere from communism. It provided the ultimate recruitment tool for it, ensuring that the Red Menace would have a grievance to exploit for generations. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, SYNCARP had quite a few. For instance, clandestine radio propaganda was perfected through the Voice of Liberation. Today, this technology has evolved into digital information operations. In the intelligence community, this is used to create bot networks and fake social media profiles to sway elections or cause civil unrest without firing a shot. For humanity, this breakthrough is found in crisis communication systems, where localized broadcasts are used to provide life-saving information during natural disasters or power outages, allowing governments to reach citizens even when the main grid is down. Front organization financial shielding was the mechanical heart of SYNCARP. Today, this is used in corporate shell structures to move money and assets globally, while the intelligence community uses this to fund black projects and move deniable assets. The broader world uses this for venture capital and startup incubation, allowing companies to test new ideas and technologies in a sandbox environment that protects the parent company from liability. Psychological warfare leaflet operations were used to demoralize the Guatemalan capital. Today, this is the ancestor of targeted advertising and algorithmic influence. In the military, it has evolved into precision information drops via mobile apps. For humanity, this technology is used in public health awareness campaigns, where micro-targeting is used to deliver specific health warnings or vaccination information to vulnerable populations based on their geographic location. And proxy militia logistics was the blueprint for how SYNCARP armed the rebels. Today, this is used in global security assistance and train and equip missions. While the CIA uses this to support insurgents in various theaters, the humanitarian application is found in remote resource deployment, where NGOs use the same logistical principles to airdrop food, water, and building supplies into famine-stricken or war-torn areas that are unreachable by land. We live in a world where the line between a corporation and a country is often blurred by the shadows of the past. SYNCARP was the first time that blur was intentionally engineered to change the map. It was a revolution made of plywood, radio waves, and the cold calculation of the hidden hand. The plywood revolution wasn't about liberating a people, it was about securing a supply chain. The reality of SYNCARP is that it turned an entire region into a banana republic, a place where the government is just a front for foreign interest. It proved that you don't need to win hearts and minds if you can control the information they receive. This project established the dark precedent that a small group of men in an office in Florida could decide the fate of millions through the power of the front. The most haunting lesson of SYNCARP, however, is the realization that a manufactured reality can be more potent than a physical one. By the time the first real rebel soldier marched into the capital, the government had already been defeated by the idea of him. We are still living in the architecture of that deception, a world where perception is curated, where revolutions are branded, and where the plywood silhouettes of 1954 have been replaced by the pixels of the digital age. SYNCARP taught the world that if you can own the narrative, the facts on the ground are merely an afterthought. When the radio tells you the army has surrendered, check who owns the transmitter. A revolution funded by a fruit company usually ends in a bitter harvest. The loudest voice in the room is often the one coming from a plywood speaker. And remember, a front is only as strong as the lie behind it. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we examine QR File, the CIA's massive silent archive of every known foreign intelligence officer. We'll look at the human database, the tracking of a million shadows, and the cold reality of a world where your entire career can be summed up in a single secret folder. Join us next time for the Catalog of Ghost. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.